Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special bonus episode of 202 Creates Masterclass. I'm your host, Britt Waters, and we are so excited to have you here. Today is a part of the DC Creative Affairs Office Business Over Brands Digital Summit. So if you want to be about your business, pay attention, take notes, and learn with me today. First things first, this is all possible thanks to 202 Creates, an initiative of the DC Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment, led by director Angie M. Gates to celebrate, support, promote, and educate today's district creatives just like you. So we're here for you. Today's program features Gary Williams Jr. and Tamon George, co-founders of Creative Theory. So thank you guys for being with me today. How are you feeling?
We're good. It's, early in the afternoon. It was a really fun opportunity for us to have a cool chat. We're good, feeling good.
Same. I'm feeling good. I'm excited about this conversation.
Yes, we're going to get to pick your brains just a little bit, but first, let's get to know you better. Gary is an award-winning photographer with focus on community storytelling and turning businesses into brands. He's worked with some brands you may know, like Nike, BMW, Timex, so many more than we can even name. And Tamon is a marketing strategist dedicated to cultural storytelling, like having worked with Google, Facebook, YouTube, and so many more. Now, you guys co-founded Creative Theory, a content marketing agency that builds impactful, inclusive, cultural narratives. And when I thought about Creative Theory, I was like, this sounds like an R&B group. And then I saw you guys, and you guys look like you could be like an R&B duo, like somebody raps, somebody sings. How did you guys come up with that name? Let's start with you, Gary.
Well, if we are an R&B duo, I definitely am the rapper. Tamon would be the singer. No. Great question. I don't think nobody's really asked us that question ever. When we were first starting to meet and talk about Creative Theory, which is what it's named now, we literally just did a quick kind of brainstorming session. Like, what is it that we want to do, first of all? And then really we're just looking for a cool name that kind of described a little bit of the ethos of what we were trying to build, and was a little saucy as well. So I wish I had like a deep answer for you, but that's pretty much it. Like, we wanted something that was cool, but also kind of spoke to a little bit of what we were building or planned to build.
I like that. A lot of collaboration between the two of you, and so many people have really great ideas, but not everybody takes action on those ideas. When you guys came together, how did you trust each other to enter such a huge partnership together? Tamon, let's start with you.
I think that's a really good question, number one. I think when we kind of first started playing around with the idea of starting a company and growing one, I think we were really good at taking like small kind of like bite-sized chunks out of whatever this thing could be. And what I mean by that is we didn't set out to say, we had to be 50 people deep in X number of years or earn X number of revenue dollars by a certain time, or we're calling it quits. I think we just allowed it to kind of grow and be really organic in the work that we did and the work that we chose to do. And that ultimately just kind of let us learn our way into this thing of entrepreneurship and learning your way into being a business owner. And once you really kind of start to identify what that means, then it gets a lot easier to kind of talk about some of those big things that you got to keep your eye out for.
Gary, what do you have to say about trusting in the partnership?
Yeah, no, I think, on a more personal level, I think both of us are skilled in recognizing like vibes and really, discerning. And I think from the start, we both just had good feelings about each other from our conversations, some of the shared experiences that we had. And so, just talking through life goals and, things we wanted out of life and business. I think noticing the similarities there, we started off on a good foundation of trust. And then, like Tamon said, we didn't set out to have, this huge 50-person, situation from day one. It really was, let's just trust the journey, and trust one another and their preferred skills, and see where it takes us. So, it's always been trust from the beginning.
Yes, we're all about showing the district's creatives how to really understand the business landscape and who to work with. And I think you guys both talking about vibes is so important, because you can't just jump into a huge undertaking with someone that you don't have the same vibes with. So can you tell us the main function of creative theory?
Yeah, I'll take the first pass, and Gary, feel free to jump in. So we're a full-service creative agency. What that means is everything from kind of campaign consulting and ideation and strategic direction to production execution, film, photo, graphic design, illustration, experiential as well. Kind of like to sum it up, if you will, clients come to us with some type of marketing brief. We strategize on that, develop some type of idea, whatever that is, whether it's experiential, whether it's digital, whether it's out of home, billboards or activations, etc. And then go ahead and produce that and execute that to whatever the vision and kind of metrics are that we need to get to.
I love that. I know there's probably some brands out there that you look at and you're like, ugh, cringing at some of the marketing things they do, whether it's lacking diversity or not being creative or just being stuck in a rut and not having those moments that really make you get attention and go viral. I'm not going to ask you to call in any brands that might need your help. But when you guys see a brand that's like, wow, they could really use us, how do you first get in touch with them or reach out or offer your services up?
Yeah, you want to take this with someone?
Nah, go ahead. That's all you.
Yeah.
You don't have to name any specifics.
No, we're not naming. I think the question is funny because that's not how our process works. We don't do that. So it's. But
does that ever happen? Do you ever see a commercial and cringe and be like, "Wow, they could use our help"?
No, I mean we see campaigns and things that were like, this didn't necessarily hit home, or this could have been better. But we've never been, and this is like fortunate. We've never had to kind of do that, right? And in our business strategy is reach out to folks we think could potentially use our services. Fortunately, all the clients and partners that we have today have really, reached out to us for our services. And we're very happy with our clientele list right now. We're doing some really incredible and impactful work that we love to do. So, that's why we were laughing, because that question, we typically don't necessarily cold pitch for business, if that makes sense, right? Again, very fortunate to be in a position where we don't have to do that at this moment. But yeah, that's why we were laughing at that question.
So how did you initially build your book of business?
So I think that what we got really good at doing early on was showcasing the work that we could do. An example of that is our first kind of foray of working with Google was from a project that was an internal project that we just decided to do and wanted to execute by ourselves. What we did, we wanted to make this like amazing digital magazine and turn that into a print mag and kind of distribute it, small distribution amongst our friends. But what we really trying to do was, prove that we could create amazing assets, tell great stories, write beautiful stories, capture great visuals, design something that's amazing. And so then once we started to circulate that in our kind of network, some friends of ours at the time who worked at Google was really interested in like, we need this type of creative, this type of storytelling at the company. And that's literally how we kind of got brought in. So like to Gary said, we've been fortunate that we get to kind of just show up as ourselves. We do what we want to do. We create the experiences that we want to create. We create the campaigns that we want to create, if not for Creative Theory, for another brand that we love here in the city or something like that. Basically, we just kind of look inward a lot and figure out how can we do something that reflects us and reflects our community. And then when we put that out into the world, people who are plugged in see it. And those are the people who want to work with us. We're fortunate now that, there's 20 of us, 20 plus, of us here at Creative Theory. And so when we put those ideas together, there's just some really big things come out of that. And the people who are watching always take notice.
That's so important. One thing we've learned doing all of these master classes is that, we keep it real. 202 Creates keeps it real with creatives that business isn't easy. What are some lessons that you learned? Can you share one that you learned early on and one that you may have learned recently?
I can start with one from early on. I think maybe a couple even, I don't even know. But the thing that I know for sure is that you can't do everything, and you certainly can't do everything well. I know when we first, made our first website way back in like 2015, we had all types of services on there. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, trend forecasting and influencer this and like just like everything, right? Because it was just like that's what agency work was and what it meant and what we kind of saw some of our agency peers doing. You quickly learn like where you want to spend your time, what is like fulfilling, what is financially rewarding, what takes too much time, too much energy, you know what I mean? And so we like quickly figured out what we needed to keep in our wheelhouse, what we could subcontract, what we could use freelancers for, and what we would just flat out say no to. And so that was kind of like some really big lessons that we learned early on, and it just allowed us to like really focus on who we were as a company and grow doing the things that we loved. And if you love doing those things, we'll do them to a higher degree.
What about you, Gary?
That was exactly what I was going to say for my first one. You can't do everything. We learned that very very early on, right? But I think if I was to add something else, it would be that all work isn't good work, right? I think there's a lot of times I would say even now, a lot of things come through our inbox. A lot of people want to work with us, and it's for us. We've been very intentional about the work that we take on, right, and making sure that that work lines up with our core values as an agency and our mission. And sometimes the budgets are big, but the work might not necessarily align with what we're trying to do, right? And so it's okay to say no to some of those things, right? I think sometimes in business, especially as a small agency or a small business, you want to take everything, right? Because typically you don't know how business is going to ebb and flow. So the tendency is like, let me just take everything that's coming in so I can make sure, things are paid for. But we've really found value in being intentional about the work that we take on. And that has really opened up some doors for us to do some really great things in this space. So.
Yeah, there is power in no, even in some things that you want to do and maybe just don't have the bandwidth. How do you manage any conflict when like one of you wants to do something and the other one's like, we can't do it? How do you manage all of that?
I think we haven't necessarily had a conflict that has needed that type of attention. I think we're fortunate in that, as Gary mentioned earlier on, like a lot of what we do here is built on the belief that it will work. And in fact, everything is built on the belief that it will work. And I also think that idea has trickled down to all of our staff as well. So when we talk about, decisions that are like really big that can kind of like sink or swim, the assumption, the benchmark is that it will work. The assumption is that we have the people, the intellect, the creativity to make all of our, ventures work. And when you kind of believe in the people around you, it just makes it a lot easier to like see the vision, see the execution, see why it makes sense, see how big something can be. And it just kind of like alleviates a lot of those stressors that might like, keep somebody on the fence or the sideline. So like just, I guess the idea of just like dreaming about how big something could be or what the kind of end result could be, let's be fearless. Let's jump in. Let's do it. Let's dive in. It'll work out. We'll work it out. We'll figure it out. It's just a mentality that I think we have across the board. And it's let us do some, crazy things. An example of that is like 2 years ago, we bought a 30-foot trailer like one weekend just cause, you know what I mean? And like we bought a 30-foot trailer one weekend. We had it, like we had a graphic designer design the wrap for it. We drove to Pennsylvania, hooked it to the back of my truck and drove it back. And like now we activate out of it. You know what I mean? We were hosting podcasting in it. We were doing, different pop-ups events in it. And it was literally just an idea we had out of a meeting, one time randomly, like, it wouldn't be great if we could do X. And then, it came to fruition, but there was there's no like red tape here, you know? So we kind of have had to, we've never really had one of those either or decisions yet at all. Might come, but I don't think so.
I love that. I love that you guys are such a team. You guys collaborate so well together, it seems.
Yeah, I think it goes back to early on, the trust. Like Tamon and I, we lead different verticals in the business, and we trust each other with those verticals, right? It's like I know his strong point. Like he leads the strategy side because that is what he does, and he trusts me to lead the creative side because that is what I do. So, a lot of it comes back to trust, and we really, as long as it aligns with the mission, the vision, there's no reason for us to be, bickering or having any kind of disagreements. We typically green light whatever it is, as long as it fits into the creative theory ethos. I think, that's one of the things, like Tamon said, no red tape. And we encourage even our team members here to like, think big, dream big. Like, what do you want to do? As a Black-owned agency, I think that's important. That we give our team that liberty to like dream big, and then we support them in whatever that is, again, in the constraints of creative theory, and as long as it aligns with our work and our mission. So
I love to hear that. Now, the Business Over Brand Summit is all about moving beyond the hustle of it all, especially in DC. Like DC has a very work, hustle, keep going, maximize your time mentality. Describe balancing the hustle mentality, but also like having a full life and not losing it.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a lot of cities in America that probably have that mentality. I think what we do well here is we have a fulfillment mentality. And like to Gary's point just a few moments ago, we ask people, what do you want to do here? Like what as an employee here, what do you want to do next? What do you want to spend your time on if you could spend your time on anything? And when it comes to like us and how we live, we both have young families. When you keep fulfillment in kind of like at its core, it just makes it a lot easier to make decisions about, I don't mind working 16 hours a day for these 3 weeks or whatever it is, because that's what makes me feel fulfilled at this exact moment. There is going to be other moments when fulfillment looks like, being on a beach. There will be other moments when fulfillment looks like, playing in the sprinklers at home with your kids. You know what I mean? So, I think it changes a lot. Even like talking about work-life balance, I try not to think about work-life balance. I try to think about fulfillment and whatever that means in the moment, because balance changes. We kind of know that as well. But yeah, it's just, DC is a special place. Yeah. But I think we're surrounded by people who are after fulfillment. And I really think that's why a lot of people even come here and work at Creative Theory as well. So it's just like, it's the energy over here. Because you can make your life whatever you want, the same way you can make, your workday whatever you want. You can make your agency whatever you want, and it just kind of like trickles through. But that's kind of how I would approach it, Gary. I'm not too sure how if you're kind of the same.
Yeah, no, I mean it's the same for me. I think when I think of balance, I for one don't think work-life balance is achievable. To maintain a balance throughout, I just don't think that's realistic. I think what I've tried to do is understanding that pendulum swings. And if the work pendulum is up 1 week, like making sure that when I'm with my family, that, it's family time, right? And work, takes sort of a back seat. So, it ebbs and flows. Obviously we're growing. And so work, we're kind of in our busy season right now. So it's a lot of work. And then communication is key, like understanding, setting boundaries at work and then at home. But at the end of the day, complete balance, I think, is unachievable. You just have to make sure, as the pendulum swings, you're kind of swinging them evenly as they go.
That's important, especially for what you guys do, because a lot of the creative side, at least when I'm my most creative, is when I have time to actually breathe and think, and I'm having fun doing what I'm doing. So your brain's never turn off, but when the two worlds can come together, it's really good. Now, when we're talking business, what is something that creatives and artists and everyone needs to know upfront in ways to protect themselves and protect their brand and whatever product they have?
There's a million different ways to kind of answer that question. I think it means different things for people depending what type of kind of creative they are, what type of product or service it is that they offer. I think we're in an interesting spot in that we try to think that we've kind of transcended that word of like creative, but we've also transcended this idea of like entrepreneurship or businessman as well. I think all those things kind of exist together. I think the people who excel understand that like they are people are intuitively creative, and that there are opportunities for folks to showcase their creativity. Like, I mean, you could be a plumber and be a creative, you know what I mean? But like, that's just how you approach your work, right? Or a tile installer or whatever the case is. Like, it's just how you approach your work. And so for us, in thinking about like how to protect your kind of intellectual property, I think we've gotten really good at doing things that only we can do. And so we try not to worry too much about like, NDA on this, or they, we can't bring this up or that up, because we're talking about things that only we have the sauce to do, right? And that can't really be duplicated. Somebody can take your idea, but it won't hit the way it will if we do it, when we do it, or wherever the case is. And we just have a mindset over here of execution. So, ideas don't stay in the ethos for too long. They typically, get out into the wild pretty quick. So, it just, honestly, it just depends. It just depends. But in terms of like straight advice, I would say, if you're in the mindset of doing, then like, don't even, try not to worry too much about, the protection and this and that. Just stay in the lane of doing. And those are the folks who always end up winning.
At what part in the journey does that become a factor where you have to worry about things like that?
I think it varies. It depends on who you are, what type of creative you are, that whether you're a photographer or, you're a filmmaker, there's different parts of that journey where you might want to start thinking about those things. I think, from a just strictly business standpoint, like if you believe in your idea, you feel like your idea is strong, like I would always put an NDA in place, right? I would rather be safe than sorry. And I know, Tamon said we don't typically, I mean, we do have NDAs, but that's something that we don't like stress over, in a sense, if that makes sense, right? We make sure they're in place, but at the same time, it's not something we're like, super, super, super stressed about. But I think if you're a creative and you're worried about your IP or your ideas being taken, the number one thing you should do is provide NDAs to people you're sharing your ideas with, right? That's like standard. So I would start there. And as far as like when to start that process, I think it's when you feel like your idea is worthy of being taken, right? Like it's a personal opinion. But that's how I would put it. And again, it's specific to each person's journey, each person's craft. But when you feel like your idea is lit and you want to share it, put that NDA in place before you share it with folks, because folks are stealing out here.
Yeah. Or just do the idea. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
Make it happen. So you're the person that did it.
Exactly.
So no one can copy.
So, right.
I love that thought process. I'm curious what brands and maybe people that you look at and you're like, wow, they are doing it right. At least in my industry, I know I'm always looking to see how people are bringing things out. I'm like, wow, did J. Cole really just like drop a whole album, join the Basketball African League at the same time? Like, I'm like, who would have thought of those things lining up? But it's teams like you guys who make those things line up. Is there any person or brand that you guys think does it well?
This is tough because you could always go with the Nikes, the Pumas. But I'm trying to shed a light on some not so known, brands, because like I said, I think Nike always seems to like get it right. I would say St. Heron. with the Salons brand. I think they have done an excellent job of staying true to themselves, and not necessarily feeling like they have to be present in every moment. And so, I think the desire is to be trendy, right? And to be in everything and in the conversation at all times, usually. But they've done a really good job at kind of creating their own pace, and creatively entering moments and entering into the conversation when they want to enter the conversation. And so, I think it takes a lot of planning to do something like that. It takes a good strategy, and it takes good content, right? Because, if you're only going to be showing up, once every quarter or every 2 quarters, like, you have to make sure whatever you are bringing to the table is something that's going to stick, something that's going to last for, that absence that you are going to kind of take on. And I think J. Cole did the same thing, right? He drops an album, then he pops smokes and he's out. But typically that rollout and that album drop lasts, for a little bit of time until people are like, oh gosh, we need another album from J. Cole. And then as soon as that conversation starts to happen, here comes J. Cole, right? And so they've done a really good job of kind of creating those tempo moments and those kind of drum beats of their brand. But again, like, that those are kind of lesser brands, not the big conglomerates like Nike's and those folks of the world, but just some ones that I've seen recently that I think have done a really good job of curating their marketing strategies.
For sure. And we're in such a ever-changing environment, whether it be a pandemic or a whole, uprising or anything that's going on. You always have to be changing things. When do you guys would say it's like some signs or a stage that you reach where you think it's time to rebrand or spice it up?
For us, as in creative theory, thinking about rebranding, I don't think we're close to rebranding. I think
for another brand too. Like, when would you suggest it to them?
Oh, wow. Wow. Very, very difficult question.
Don't change creative theory. I love it.
Yeah.
That's my new favorite R&B group.
I think that companies can reintroduce themselves, but I don't think that like a rebrand is always typically necessary. I actually think there's an article not too long ago that one of our designers was talking about, which is like, companies love to rebrand when they really don't need to, and the consumers, the audience, are not tired at all of the brand, but it's just like the brand marketers in the organizations are like, we need to change something, but it really didn't need to. What I think people should probably think about doing, though, is changing the way they interact with their audience. I think that's something that probably holds more value and more weight than just like a traditional rebrand in the sense, and then still try to communicate in the exact same way. So what does that mean? Like, where does the brand show up in public? Where does it spend its dollars? Where does it, what type of stories does it tell, and who does it feature in its comms? I think that's kind of how, like, we would say reintroducing yourself for whatever it is that you stand for, or whatever it is that you want people to know you for, rather than just kind of like a surface level rebrand, if you will. I think it's just about the introduction and where you're meeting people, thinking about new ways to do that, way more of a fun and invigorating and probably fruitful conversation.
Great advice. Now, can we please talk about the gift shop? Tell us all about it. What did you have planned for it? And then what ended up happening in the end that made it such this beautiful success? And how does it really touch the people?
Good question. Gift shop, it's our baby. So we've had this idea for some time. I think since the inception of creative theory, honestly. Obviously, it wasn't this exact iteration of gift shop, but we've had this idea since the start. And just this past year, it was just, the right opportunity, right time. Basically, gift shop is I think 700 square foot space in the front of our office where we highlight and showcase and sell all products from Black-owned merchants and makers here in the DMV area. And basically, it's literally a manifestation of kind of the mission of Creative Theory, which is to always champion and elevate our community. By our community, I mean Black and brown folks, right? So we wanted to give our community another opportunity and a space outside of just like e-commerce, a tangible experience to showcase their products and some of the things that they were making. Obviously, we know the DMV area is super talented when you talk about creatives and artists and makers, and we knew a lot of them, and a lot of them only had e-commerce, kind of situation. So Gift Shop was, again, a space for them to offer these products, to introduce their products to another audience, and hopefully get support from, an audience that, they weren't privy to before. But ultimately, we just wanted a space where we could elevate and amplify our community. And it's been extremely successful. The community has supported in ways we couldn't imagine. And I think we knew it would be a success, but just seeing it over these past, I guess, almost 3 months has been really inspirational and motivational, and there's already talks about how we expand this concept maybe into different cities, or even, other locations here in the DMV area. So it's been great. We're really excited and really now looking at like how this can grow and scale is the exciting part.
And giving back to the community, pouring into it, providing a platform, those are necessary steps of the business. So to see you guys doing it and being successful at it, kudos to you. It's definitely appreciated. This whole time you guys have been talking, I'm thinking like, wow, this is a nice place to work. I'm sure there's people that are thinking that too. Let them know how they could possibly join your team or support you guys, elevate you guys, and get in touch with you all.
Yeah, they're. I mean, it is a special place. I think there's a couple of folks here that call working at Creative Theory Disneyland. But all that to say, I think it's just the culture that we have here is people who work really, really hard, but also love the work that they do, and that's kind of like the winning combination. We, at this exact moment, don't have official like applications out for any particular positions here at the agency. But what we do love to do is kind of have a Rolodex of people who we can kind of plug in and give a kind of trial round to whenever we have an opportunity to expand. So that said, there's always some folks to reach out to here at Creative Theory, either myself or Gary. Our emails are on our website. You could also reach out to our senior brand manager, Gerald at creativetheory.agency. Get in touch with him and kind of not necessarily shoot your shot, but just kind of say what you do, what you love to do, what some of your, creative skills or marketing talents are. And we can kind of take that conversation from there and figure out where it is we can kind of plug somebody in.
Thank you guys so much for being here. If you have one last word of advice, please share it to everyone watching. You guys dropped a lot of gems today.
Word of advice. Believe in yourself, trust your skills, and do the work.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Best of luck to everything else that you have next. And, hopefully you can work with everyone who's watching this right now. Thank you to our audience for watching, all of the district's creatives, and thank you to 202 Creates. Make sure you tap into all of the resources. 202 Creates provides entrepreneurship programming, provides technical assistance, this masterclass series, our biannual residency program, all designed to aid creatives in scaling their endeavors. So make sure you go to 202creates.com to tap into all of those resources because they're just for you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you learned just as much as me. If you wrote down notes, share them with your friends. I'll catch you guys next time.